Hey, this is Josh X reacting for Dojo 7, and today we'll be reviewing a TED Talk on the breathtaking courage of Harriet Tubman. As always, we want to hear your comments and video suggestions in the comments, so go ahead and hit us up. And never forget that you can check out dojo7.com for apparel and other ways to support. Let's get to the video. First of all, love TED Talks. Aspire to do several TED Talks. So if you're organizing one and you need some gems, holla at your boy. Know a little bit about Harriet Tubman. I'm not a Harriet Tubman scholar or a slave history scholar. I know it as a general part of Black history, but in general, I do not lend the majority of my focus at this point in my life. I did at one point, but just right now I'm thinking about other things, and I may return to it, but to focusing on what was going on during slavery, even though you're talking about something that has had just innumerable ramifications, the reprogramming of a nation by that experience. In a lot of ways, it's made us who we are. But there's right now currently a political debate that would not even be a discussion to be had in academia. And I do think that that's unfortunate. But let's start.
Escaping slavery, risking everything to save her family, leading a military raid, championing the cause of women's suffrage. These are just a handful of the accomplishments of one of America's most courageous heroes. Harriet Tubman was born Araminta Ross in Dorchester County, Maryland, in the early 1820s. Born into chattel slavery, Araminta, or Minty, was the fifth of 9 children. 2 of Minty's older sisters were sold to a chain gang. Even as a small child, Minty was hired out to different owners who subjected her to whippings and punishment. Young Minty's life changed forever on an errand to a neighborhood store. There, an overseer threw a 2-pound weight at a fugitive enslaved person, missed, and struck Minty instead. Her injury caused her to experience sleeping spells, which we know of today as narcolepsy, for the rest of her life. Minty's owner tried to sell her, but there were no buyers for an enslaved person who fell into sleeping spells. She was instead put to work with her father, Ben Ross, who taught.
It's a pause to acknowledge and give breath to and space to just the fucked up experiences and mindset that people were going through in that time. And there's still shit going on today, but like, fuck. That's wild.
Her how to lumber. Lumbering increased Minty's physical strength and put her in touch with free Black sailors who shipped the wood to the north. From them,
you also, all good things work for the good of those who love the Lord. Motherfucker get hit in the head with a 2-pound weight that damages their brain and gives them narcolepsy. And that is fucked up. Because of that fucked up experience, you now are devalued as a economic product to the point that you can't be sold or moved around or open to abuse the way that slaves who did not have narcolepsy could be, especially women. And that shapes your path towards something different. So even in these injuries and these traumas and these terrible situations, all things can work for positive outcomes.
From them, Minty learned about the secret communications that occurred along trade routes, information that would prove invaluable later in her life. In this mixed atmosphere of free and enslaved Blacks working side by side, Minty met John Tubman, a free Black man she married in 1840.
You know what I'm saying? Because it is, you get put into a different job, you have the tenacity and the perseverance to stick with it, become a good axe swinger, and now you around a different community and a different network and different information, all from, first of all, the situation is tragic, period, just being a fucking slave, but probably one of the frequent traumas, people just experience their lives being completely disrupted. But motherfucker throwing weights around, you know what I mean?
Named herself Harriet after her mother. Harriet Tubman's owner died in 1849. When his widow planned to sell off her enslaved human beings, Harriet feared she would be sold away from everyone she loved. She had heard of an underground railroad, a secret network of safe houses, boat captains, and wagon drivers willing to harbor fugitive enslaved people on their way north. So Tubman fled with two of her brothers, Ben and Harry. They eventually turned back, fearing they were lost. But in one of her sleeping spells, Harriet dreamed that she could fly like a bird. Looking down below, she saw the path to liberation. And in the autumn of 1849, she set out on her own, following the North Star to Pennsylvania and to freedom. Tubman returned to the South 13 times to free her niece, brothers, parents, and many others. She earned the nickname Black Moses and worked diligently with fellow abolitionists to help enslaved people escape, first to the North and later to Canada. Harriet Tubman worked as a Union Army nurse, scout, and spy during the Civil War. In 1863, she became the first woman in United States history to plan.
You also have to wonder, you have to appreciate how the way people value you is not always an indication of your value and your capacity. We have this woman who is you can't be sold because you got narcolepsy, but you can make 13, freedom trips. You can be a spy. You can be a nurse in the Army back when nurses was probably getting shot up because they owned the goddamn battlefield. I'm sure they still are today. I don't want to speak with ignorance. But what somebody says is true about you or your capacity is not the truth. And you get to determine what's actually true,
To plan and lead a military raid, liberating nearly 700 enslaved persons in South Carolina. After the war, the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution legally abolished slavery, while the 14th...
Unless you're convicted of a crime, shout out to Ava DuVernay in the 13th documentary.
expanded citizenship, and the 15th gave voting rights to formerly enslaved Black men. But she was undaunted, and she persisted. She raised funds for formerly enslaved persons and helped build schools and a hospital on their behalf. In 1888, Tubman became more active in the fight for women's right to vote. In 1896, she appeared at the founding convention of the National Association of Colored Women in Washington, D.C.
49 and 96, what's that? 50 years would be 99. So she probably somewhere in her 70s, almost close to 70.
And later at a women's suffrage meeting in Rochester, New York. There she told the audience, "I was a conductor on the Underground Railroad, and I can say what many others cannot. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger." As her fame grew, various friends and allies helped her in the fight to collect a veteran's pension for her service in the Union Army. In 1899, she
does all this, still has to fight to collect her veteran's pension for being an active duty servicewoman. The hits just always keep on coming, man. It's always the next wall to run through. So just because, you're a free person and life has gotten better, don't think that you're done working, because you're not.
was finally granted $20 a month. In a fitting twist of fate, the United States Treasury announced in 2016 that Tubman's image will appear on a redesigned $20 bill. Harriet Tubman died.
I ain't seen it yet, but I'm waiting for them tubbies.
Died on March 10th, 1913. Even on her deathbed at age 91, she kept the freedom of her people in mind. Her final words were, "I go away to prepare a place for you."
We love it. That's going to be it for this reaction. This is Josh X, reacting for Dojo 7. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead, throw us a like. And remember that you can subscribe to stay up to date with videos as they come out of the channel. If you think that this will be valuable to anybody in your network, go ahead and share it with them. Never forget that you can check out dojo7.com for apparel and other ways to support. And that's it for me. I'm out.